But I do want to transition into some helpful tips that you have for individuals because you've already, y'all don't know, I got a whole sticky note right here. Like you've already been downloading into me and planting seeds into me that I didn't even know was coming, you know? So yeah, if you can just, we can go ahead and
Yeah.
transition into some helpful tips that could be good for the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm all about, giving out information. I don't feel like hoard it for what? I don't
Yeah.
need it. Here, you take it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll run through them, try to be as succinct as possible. The first one actually piggybacks a little bit of what we talked about earlier with our inner work and the career goals aspect. So to set clear goals. So
Mm-hmm.
I often tell clients that your job target is a little bit like a roadmap. And the more specific you can be about that final destination, the more effective we can be in getting you there. It's just like me saying, oh, I want to go to a trip. I'm just going to go to Texas. Where in Texas are you going to go? Like it's huge. It's the
Yeah.
same thing with someone just picking an industry or like, I want to be in project management, IT project management. Do you want to be more on the analyst
Mm-hmm.
side? Do you want to be on the product development side? Like being really specific is important. And
Mm-hmm.
as mentioned, it's even more important now that the industry is changing because employers will be scanning for relevant keywords.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're just putting it all out there, and a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to pigeonhole myself, your resume is just not going to be effective if you
Okay.
don't go the specific route. So what I often tell people, and it's common, even you see with my business, I'm like, I'm here and I'm there everywhere. It's quite all right if you have multiple targets,
Yeah.
but you have to be clear about them. So it's much better to say, I have even, 3 targets rather than I'm just going to go in this general area. Because if you have 3 targets, you can be very clear about I have this resume for this target, this one for that one.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't, sometimes if you have it, you can definitely purchase multiple, but you can also just go through and take the one that you have
Mm-hmm.
and then tailor it. So resume tailoring is really important. Like if someone comes to me and they're like, well, I sent out, 100 applications. I know you're doing it wrong because you should be
Mm.
sending out really intentional applications that get more feedback than a whole bunch that don't get you anything.
Right.
So the strategy is to be specific, to be targeted, to set clear goals. And you can, of course, do the inner work and have someone help you to do that and then move forward with your job search.
Okay.
And I'm
So
going to pause after each one for questions.
yeah, no. So just kind of recapping, set clear goals, be specific, not just I want this job title or I
Mm-hmm.
just want the bag, you know, like be specific, have keywords that's more helpful for having an effective resume and tailoring your resume. So even if you
Mm-hmm.
have multiple targets, you like you said, like if you have 3, you can have a separate resume for those targets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So the second one is something I think that just I hope it's helpful so that you understand and we as educators as therapists talk a lot about like circle of control. So it's a little bit like that. Understanding that there are multiple factors outside of your control. It's not always you or your resume. A writer can
Mm-hmm.
help you optimize in many, many different areas so that the parts that are in your control, making sure your resume is ATS friendly, that it's structured well, it's formatted, it's written well, that you have the right approach. They can help you with all the things in your approach, but it's important so that you don't get defeated in your job search, that you don't take every rejection as it's me, as if
Mm-hmm.
my resume isn't enough. People often ask recruiters or hiring managers what they're looking for, but we can never say for sure.
Right.
Human beings come with a range of biases. We all know that, conscious and unconscious. So of course we have race, gender, age, all of those. But it could also come from a hiring manager not liking someone's name. You have research on that. If it's too ethnic,
Mm.
if it's hard to pronounce.
Yeah.
Um, but maybe just because they had, I don't know, an ex-boyfriend who had your name, they
Mm.
don't, and they may not even realize that. They could have had a negative experience with someone who has your name, who sounds like you. Sometimes companies just post jobs for a formality. They know they have someone internal who they want to fill the role.
Oh,
They just have to go by the book. So
yeah.
you and probably the thousands of people who applied were never going to get that job anyway.
Mm.
It could be that they just filled the role 2 minutes before you applied. It could be that your application fell in at the end of the day. The hiring manager's tired. They're tired of reading through a whole bunch of documents. So there are so many reasons why there could be rejections. Sometimes we just have no idea why. So if you know you've done all of the work with what's inside of your control, just breathe and let the rest go.
Mm. You got me some highlights there, honey. It took me back to where I remember a time when,
Yeah, it's a stressful
yeah,
process.
absolutely. But there is some resolve in everything is not personal.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some things outside of our control, which may not be fair. Let me say that. So when I'm saying resolve, it's not that it's fair or it's right, but yeah, that
Yeah.
really, yeah, just even that, like, you got it in like right before the deadline, and
Mm-hmm.
or even the like, oh, I already knew who I wanted for this.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that we wouldn't know, and you're sitting here hoping like, oh, I got it, I did it. Yeah, girl, I think that brought something up in me, but okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And
But
I've
that's,
heard it firsthand. Go ahead.
yeah. No, no, no. Go ahead.
Well, I heard it firsthand. Like I think I had a family member who was up for a position, and she was like, "They just have to post it, and then I can apply, and then I'm going to get it."
Mm-hmm.
And I've been a hiring manager myself, and I've had days where it's just like this person didn't follow the rules, or
Mm-hmm.
it could be this small thing, or you just feel like, oh, I really like this person in the interview. I don't know why, but I
Yeah.
like them. We vibed. I'm going to move them on. And I even had a person like that. I had a teacher who had a really great interview with her, but I'm outranked. I had to send her interview to my director, and he
Mm-hmm.
was like, nah,
Mm.
I don't know why, but she didn't get
Right.
to move on, even though she was probably like, dang, I had a great interview.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You never know.
You never know.
You never know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That one.
Yeah.
That was eye opening,
Yeah.
to say the
Yeah.
least. But we won't turn this into my own session. So, but yeah. So my takeaway for that, just it's going to be some things outside of your control. Again, focus on what is in your control or influence.
Yeah.
Even if you can't control something, do you actually have some way to influence it?
Yeah.
And outside of that, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Number three is to try and treat your resume and your LinkedIn and interview a bit like a proposal. It's a piggybacking off of number one, where you want to set that target and set that clear goal. And once you're creating your LinkedIn profile or creating your resume, it's like creating a proposal for what um, the employer is looking for on the opposite end of that. It's hard because you do try to find the balance between what you're bringing to the table, but making that relevant. Setting up your narrative and your brand, but making it relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many people who are like, I really want to include this in my resume, or like, I have this job I had 15 years ago and it did a lot for me and I loved it. And I'm just like, hiring manager's not even gonna look at that.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of feelings around what is important to us in our career, and that's definitely valid. If you can find value in that, you can definitely amplify that on your profile and on your resume. But overall, what you're asking yourself constantly is, what is this employer looking for? Because I'm trying to give them that.
Mm-hmm.
And even the person doing the interviewing, sometimes that may not even be the owner or the manager or even the person doing the role. Sometimes that person is in HR and they have a checklist.
Mm.
They're looking for specific things in you.
Yeah.
And if you go in talking about how you like fishing, it's just the goal is to fill this role. Tell us how you can fill this role better than the person who's going to come after you or before you.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you create your proposal is by looking at the job posting. Go through, look for the exact keywords, descriptions that they are presenting for that particular role. If you have that experience, make sure that's outlined clearly in your resume. And we'll talk more about how to highlight that in ways that help set you apart. But make sure that you're aligning your unique brand, not just saying, here I am and I'm great, but here I am and I'm great because I can give you what you're looking for,
Mm-hmm.
which is XYZ.
Yeah. With you sharing that, I want to go back to the LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also that last part where you just mentioned, like, I'm great and this is what I offer, because
Yeah.
it's even that part. Sometimes for some of us, it's, oh, I know I'm it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to communicate that to you guys. Like, I know I am a
Mm-hmm.
sparkle in
Yep.
this area. Like, there's nobody better, but I
Yep.
don't know how to get you to get that.
Yeah.
So Yeah, so even the work that you do is
Mhm.
supporting us in that,
You take
because
that
I
out. Yeah.
can, yeah, I can all day tell you, baby, put me on a Title I campus, let's go.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to get that
Yeah.
to the principal that may, what if this is your
Exactly.
first year in Title I and you don't even,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
LinkedIn. So two things with LinkedIn. A question I had is, are employers looking for potential candidates through LinkedIn? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It
Okay.
used to be that, well, one, they just look at your resume. And then with the internet blowing up, they might try to Google you and see what your internet
Mhm.
presence was. Now you just go LinkedIn because it's a site for professionals. So if they want to see who you are as a professional, they're going to find you on LinkedIn. If you're not there,
Okay.
fix that.
Hmm.
And then if you are there, make sure you're there as your best self. And then sometimes employers aren't technically, because sometimes we're thinking about them posting the job, reviewing your resume, and then they might look at you on LinkedIn to maybe see if they want to move forward with an interview. Sometimes recruiters, because employers hire recruiters, especially big companies, they're
Hmm.
actually looking for specific talent. They hire recruiters, and people talk about being reached out to on LinkedIn by recruiters all the time.
Hmm.
So you could be comfortable in your job, and a recruiter reaches out to you with an offer that's 2 times the salary. It better look like you
Yeah.
never know what opportunities you might be missing by not having a strong LinkedIn presence. It's for sure.
Okay. Okay. When I say you are downloading, right? So the audience doesn't know that we didn't speak in detail about what the conversation would be. We just kind
Yeah.
of had, I gave you some talking
Yeah.
points
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't really discuss it. So I'm learning as the audience is learning as well.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talked about LinkedIn, and I won't go on a tangent, but I feel it bubbling, but I won't go there. But I'm also often confused because I was told that, or knew that LinkedIn was more of a professional site. And I am starting to see so much personal information, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to be very mindful of get information out, not necessarily to recruit for a job, but I want to get information out in a way that this is useful for people
Mm-hmm.
who are on a professional site. And then
Yeah.
sometimes I find myself like, do I need to go back and figure out what LinkedIn is now? Because I had it
Mm-hmm.
at one point, took a few years off because, right, just doing my thing. And now it's like, oh, you got a business. And now I'm like, oh, I'm seeing families. Oh, I'm like, I don't, does my
Mm-hmm.
information belong, or
Mm-hmm.
did it transition without me being
Yeah.
aware?
Yeah. That's a good point. And it's making me think LinkedIn has definitely changed over time. From my understanding, it's
A
still a
professional understanding.
professional networking
Okay.
site. Yes.
Okay.
And I actually don't see, and it could be those who are in my network, I actually don't see any posts on like
Okay.
that would be like something on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah.
I've definitely seen, I think LinkedIn has incorporated more videos.
Okay.
I've definitely seen kind of people post and engage more, whereas it used to just be this is my profile and leave it alone.
Hmm.
I'm also seeing LinkedIn make changes like they've added to the skills section. But again, all this is very professional changes.
Yeah.
And if you're ever unsure, LinkedIn is great. They have like ambassadors, they have articles
Hmm.
that when your site, your profile has like reached star status. So they have lots of tools to help you. I would stick with keeping it professional. I
Hmm.
think those who are leaning towards the more personal side are one, maybe a little confused about it themselves, or two, they're not relying on LinkedIn for professional advancement. It could be somebody who has their own business, who is at the peak of their career and they're not
Yeah.
using it for. So all of this is relative. A lot of the tips here are for people who are sending out traditional online applications. But if you're a consultant, if you're a business owner, if you have the space to kind of set your profile the way you want,
Hmm.
or your brand is based on that, then you can have a lot more leeway. But for those of us who might be relying on it for career advancement, to try and keep it professional.
Okay. Now that makes sense. I got what I need.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need LinkedIn to do
Mm-hmm.
something for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, about to get my kids.
Yeah.
Like, so I can kind of see
Yeah.
that, but I don't post on there often. I started to, and I kind of stopped because I'm like, I don't really know the lay
Yeah.
of the land.
Yeah.
So yeah, so thank you for that. That was my last question about LinkedIn. So if you have any more tips, we can get into
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, so we'll do 4 and 5. So 4 is interview likability. So we've gone from like goals to resumes and LinkedIn. And now when you get to the interview stage, and this also, I think everything is timed back to doing that inner work.
Yeah.
Um, often, often quote the quote that's about people remembering how you make them feel.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go in an interview and you can share all the details that you want, but people are often going to remember the vibe, the feel that they got from you. So just to keep that in mind, you have to be, it's tricky. You have to be confident yet humble. You have to be personable and natural, but still professional.
Mm-hmm.
You have to seem like an expert or kind of perfect for the role, but not a know-it-all and annoying. You have to be passionate, but not overbearing or overwhelming or too much. So
Yeah.
it's a very delicate balance. So definitely practice.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us, even if we're very personable, even if a person is extroverted, if they feel like they talk a lot, they talk well, or they perform well in interviews, you don't always know that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you might get nervous and maybe you go off on a tangent. So it's like, that means me involved as well. Um, so it's helpful to imagine what you would want to hear or experience as a hiring manager. Record yourself, reach out to a coach or even a friend who will tell you the truth, not someone who's a yes person, if you need help. But remember that likability. Remember that you want to sound like you are good for the job, but you also want to sound like a humble and good person. And striking that balance isn't easy. So practice.
It's not easy. So even when you were speaking, I'm like, she's coming for me, but she's not
I'm
coming for me. No, because the things you were saying are true. When you're like, don't go off on that tangent and, balance your personality and the professional.
not.
I can see why I didn't get that job and why, right? Like that's what I'm kind of going through. Uh, yeah. So yeah, it's not easy. Thank you for putting that at the end. Like it's not easy. It's almost sometimes I feel it's almost like you got to tap dance, but you don't know how to tap dance. But as long as it's that, like
You sound all right.
going somewhere, and then it can work. But no, it's not easy. It's not easy. And for someone who, before I transitioned into my current role, outside of my part-time work as an LPC associate, it was several interviews and, just leaving like, I don't know. I got to the point, you just like, I killed that. And then it was after a while, I was like, oh, no, I don't think that one was it. Like, or like, I'm like, there was a lot of
You
laughter.
were self-aware. You were reflective.
Yeah, but I also had to go home and eat some whipped cream because I'm like, I think I took an L. Not like they don't even have to tell me. So yeah, even just balancing all that. But I do like the tips that you gave. Record yourself, watch yourself, sit with that discomfort of how you would come off to someone else. Have someone that you trust, not someone that's just gonna hype you up.
Yeah.
If you really had less yes men in your life, you probably wouldn't really need a lot of counseling. But we're not talking about that. Just make sure you have people that you can trust and that will be honest with you.
And you're open to that feedback.
Yes. Of how you're being received,
Yeah.
not that that's your intention. Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like you came for me a little bit, but I know you didn't. So I don't want to be one of your clients that's like, excuse me, what you say? Like you, like I'm not
We're ready to fight.
right. Like what you say? What? Not that,
Yeah.
but I'm sharing that in humor and saying that I can definitely see from what you just shared why some of the roles I didn't get. Well, I'm like, I knew that one was mine.
Yeah.
And then again, going back to those external factors. So finishing your journey, you were
Yep.
step 4 in the journey. So what's
Yep.
step 5?
So five, well, so 5 is actually going backwards a little bit, is where I wanted to end with like practical resume tips.
Okay.
The resume is where we start. It's where we can, again, for traditional online applications, you can get your foot in the door to hopefully be able to put into practice some of the other tips. So this is kind of an overflow. So I have 3 resume tips, things that I see that could be small tweaks that people can make. Um, to make sure that their resume is just a little bit more effective.
Mm-hmm.
So first is, again, for traditional resumes where not every company, sometimes it's small businesses don't use applicant tracking systems, like a subscription that you have to pay for. But if you're applying for a company where either you don't know or it's likely that they use one thing you want to avoid on your resume is text boxes, columns, any of those keywords being put in a box of information that likely cannot be scanned.
Okay.
So I see people with that column text boxes, sometimes tables as well. ATS, applicant tracking systems, can't read those. So if you're not sure, just go for a more simple format. I often tell people we used to make really, really pretty resumes, and we can still do it, but we've actually kind of toned things down because the systems can't read them as well. So you definitely have one. You can have multiple versions, but when you're applying, try to remove anything where those important words are in a box of any kind. Second, for resume tips is to include those keywords. So we talked earlier about how you're creating a proposal. My literal step is going through a job description for a client, highlighting the keywords, copying and pasting them into the resume, and not leaving them like that. Please don't do that. I've had clients who are like, I'm just going to copy and paste the job posting and put it in like white text and send it out. Please have integrity. That's gotten us all in trouble because systems are going to look for a certain ratio, percentage of keywords. If you're too high, they're going to kick you out. So what I do is I'll copy and paste it in there, but then I'm writing for hours on the summary in the skills section and incorporating those words in my writing. I'm not just copying and pasting them in there. So that you can definitely adopt my strategy if you'd like, but make sure that you are in some ways seeing a balance between some of the keywords related to the job and the job posting and what you have throughout your resume, especially when you're talking about your summary at the top in the skill section. It's usually around the middle part. And then the third one is to set yourself apart. As online applications have gotten more popular, as people have started to use more resume writers, you'll have more competition. And using keywords and having that formatting won't be enough anymore. It's important to have that narrative, to create your professional brand, and then to set yourself apart by showing not only can you do the job, but you can do it better. And we do that by having concrete accomplishments. So we don't want to just describe what we did day to day. We can do like a couple of lines of that on the resume, but usually when you get down to the bullets or when you get to most of the content, that's when you want to start saying, I did this and so well that it impacted the business in this way. And ideally, you want to make them measurable. One, because it gives context. If I just say I increased, I don't know, student learning or I increased sales, that's very different than saying I increased sales by 50%. So it gives a quick context that a hiring manager can understand, like, oh, we actually had an impact. And then two, as human beings, we're all busy. It's just more likely that that accomplishment will even be seen or read if it has a number rather than a whole bunch of words. So if you can, and again, writers and coaches can help ask you questions. It's very difficult. I often tell people to think in metrics. We don't think in metrics. No one goes to their job and they're like, oh, I did this 3% more today. No one does that. So you have people on your side who can help you try and recall and tell stories where you can try and pull out some of those metrics, even if it's a couple more than you have, that's something. And that way you can show that I can do the job, but I can also do it really, really well in a way that this business is going to benefit. Because at the end, that's what they're going to want. We want more revenue. We want more clients. We want a better reputation. How can you give that to us as opposed to just coming in, clocking in, doing the job, and clocking out?
Yeah. With the last part you mentioned, just kind of tuning in the mental health, right? The mental health perspective. I can even see something which we should be reflecting on ourselves, right? Introspection is needed.
Yeah.
But even taking time, intentional time of noting accomplishments, not just going through the day, going through the motions, but even if you did set up time, right? Because we're going to have our evaluations. We're going to have those, and that's more so of like, let me just keep my job. You know what I mean? Or like, let me get more money. But actually sitting back and taking time and reflecting on that area of your life, of work. What am I doing? What is my impact? What has been different? Has the culture changed? You know, even if you can't put a number to it immediately, note those things down so you can find ways to communicate that. Um, that really stood out to me because we know we do great work. We
Mm-hmm.
know, well, some of us know we do great work. Some of us, right,
Oh,
is look,
yeah,
as long as that check come on the
bare
first and
minimum,
15th, right? Like
bare minimum.
early. Do you hear me? So so but speaking for that, right? Because the audience member that is probably going to listen or even get this far is like, yeah, this is kind of what I was sitting in, or where I'm wanting some growth or some movement or to see some momentum. Take time to honor yourself in
Mhm.
reflecting in that area of your life. Maybe
Yeah.
not even for the purpose of, okay, how can I level up? But
Mhm.
how have I leveled up? How have
Mhm.
I grown from here to here? So just connecting
Mhm.
that to the overall mental wellness.
Mhm.
Right. Like I said, you're downloading into me because
Mhm.
new career, two careers. So people don't know I have two careers. So LPC
Mhm.
associate right now is part-time. Plus I have
Yeah.
my day job, and I'm around humans and I'm around little humans and I'm investing in their well-being. And you do good work, or you hear things and you're kind of
Mhm.
so far removed from it, like, oh, I'm just doing my job. But no,
Yeah.
sit in that and like,
Yeah.
be curious, what will make them say that, or what was
Yeah.
different. um,
Yeah.
but yeah, thank you for that. That's definitely
Absolutely.
some
Yeah.
homework, you know.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought it back to that because we do. I hear that all the time. One, I just did my job. I know I did great. I just went in. I don't really think about accomplishments. Like I'm not bragging about myself, which is fine. But not only will it help in terms of presenting yourself to potential employers for networking, it
Mhm.
helps you in your self-esteem and knowing the impact that you've had. So make it a practice at the end of each month or
Mhm.
quarter or week if you want. Be like, go through your emails. Who gave you kudos? Go through all of
Mhm.
the projects that you've done. What has been the progress that I've led? How have I
Mhm.
impacted this? Um, keep a keep a document with quotes of things that people send you or accomplishments that you've noticed. And don't discount it if it's not measurable. I want to make that clear. We try to measure it because it looks good on the resume, but an accomplishment over a responsibility is better with
Mhm.
a measurement or without. So still focus on the things that you've done to contribute where you are. Yeah, and that can help you realize that, yeah, maybe I need to apply for this, director instead of senior manager level. Like I know what I'm bringing to the table because I literally have the evidence in front of me.
Mhm. And to piggyback off of just what you shared, sometimes I am noticing
Mhm.
that we don't know, an individual doesn't know when it's time for their level up. Like they haven't even processed that
Mhm.
they have already leveled up. So in their
Yeah.
mind, they're staying in their, oh, this is my lane and I'm comfortable here and I'm thriving here. But it's like, you've outgrown that.
Yeah.
But the people are going to keep you there because you do the
Yeah.
service very well and you're better than
Exactly.
everybody else. But
Yeah. And you're
you
cheaper if
actually,
you're at a lower level.
yeah, but actually, you will be an amazing coordinator
Mm-hmm.
because the questions you ask and the way you organize, and sometimes when the people above you are coming to you and like, how would you
Mm-hmm.
do that? Or can I get your notes?
Mm-hmm.
Like taking note of that. That
Yeah.
can be even in that reflection piece that you kind of
Exactly.
mentioned of,
Yeah.
maybe it's not just about me doing so great in my role, but maybe I'm showing traits and leadership characteristics or other
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
that's beyond my role.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
homework. Okay, so far you walked us through the 5-step process that even gave us some bonus at
Yeah.
the end. This has been so insightful. And how many of us sit down and talk with a career consultant or a career coach and an educator with the
Mm-hmm.
sociologist lens? So I just need people to understand, right? Like just the value that's here.
Yeah.
It's not always just about, sometimes it's you having multiple sticky notes from things that, is being said of like, okay, I
Mhm.
can incorporate this, or let me get my crew together. Let me get my tribe together. Y'all, I came across this. Have y'all thought about this? Let's start something there. Um,
Yeah.
something so important. So I thank you so very much for your knowledge, your skills, your talent, your wisdom, and your vulnerability. You've shared
Mhm.
some personal things with us, even from your the hard lessons that you had to endure.
Yeah.
So, in closing this conversation, which I feel like it can go on forever, and I would
Right.
love to do a part two. I already have some
Yeah.
ideas, from
Yeah.
things that were shared here, and if there's any inquiries that come up,
Yeah.
we can definitely come to the table and
Yeah.
kind of tailor it. Like, okay, we're going to focus just on
Mhm.
that, or
Yeah.
even if it's something like a workshop,
Yeah. Oh,
where
absolutely.
they just come to us, they get
Yeah.
the few points, and yeah,
Yeah.
so we'll definitely, me and the Foundations Project, honey,
Yeah.
we'll go
Oh,
ahead. I'm already brain
yes. The
going.
partnership is solid. So we are
Y'all
here
heard
for
that?
you all. Yeah.
Y'all heard that? It is solid, honey.
Solid.
But again, the demographic that I'm working with, and of course the world can see this, but just the demographic that I'm working with, I am so invested in. Just get information. Even if you're not
Mhm.
using it right now, like you said, we're not going to gatekeep information. Now, when you're paying for service, absolutely, you're going to pay for that service. But when it comes to just information, this is here. Did you think about this? Did you know this? You seeing a trend that I done lost the last 3 jobs and I keep getting laid off and I'm blaming everybody else. Maybe it's deeper than the job. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
is just so, what's the word? Invaluable? No.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, invaluable. We can't
Mhm.
put a price tag on this.
Mhm.
And it's just something that can go.
Mhm.
So in this amazing conversation that I don't want to end, but it will continue in another way, I
Yeah.
wanted to ask, are there any final words to the wise that you would like to emphasize or like stamp brand in the minds of the listener?
Yeah, yes. I have a couple things. Some that might have been kind of sprinkled throughout, but I want to make it very clear at the end. And what I always like to tell people is what is for you is for you.
Mhm.
Kind of taking it back to my initial story. And this is specifically for those who have the privilege to take time in their job search. For those who are in more dire situations, I definitely understand kind of landing the job that you need. And then from there,
Yeah.
making steps toward finding more meaningful work. But making sure that your job search strategy is effective, landing a good job that's comfortable but may not be your ideal, and then you end up right back in the market. So trying to avoid that as much as possible and helping people find the work that they find they can have growth with and professional development, making sure that they find those roles, that they do the research, that they get help in doing that, but also all the things that are out of your control, just recognizing that I need to do the work and just kind of sit down and figure out being self-aware about where I'm actually going to be fulfilled, and then going through that strategy and making sure that I know if I miss out on something, it maybe just wasn't for me. And what's for you is for you, and often will find you.
Mhm.
Um, so that's the first one. And the second one, which is why I like to blend a lot of the well-being and mental health work, is take care of yourself. I got into um, career coaching, resume writing, because I remember looking for my first job, like
Mhm.
set job out of college, and I still, it's like it's trauma. I hated it,
Mhm.
and I hear people all the time talking about how awful job hunting is, and there's very little we can do about those systems that are set up
Right.
and they're out of our control. But I often tell clients to try and input self care practices.
Mhm.
So take specific days to research and look for roles and apply. When I was looking years ago, it was Mondays. Mondays, I would look
Yeah.
at all my jobs, I'd apply for them, send them off. That was it. I'm not looking for the rest of the week. This is all I have.
Yeah.
My cup can
Mhm.
only do Mondays, and that's it.
Right.
If you can do more, that's great. But try and put a bubble around that time, especially if it's really taxing for you. If it's not, then feel free to apply as much as you want. But if you
Mhm.
find that it's taking a lot out of you, take care of yourself in that. And then when you're done, input some self help practices. Schedule your therapy session right after your job hunt day. Something about coming home and having whipped, like schedule a dinner with yourself or a dessert. Do something to pour back into and empower yourself. And then let us know if you can help.
Thank you for that. And not to extend the conversation, but something that resonated with your words to the wise, especially the self-care part, is it's not just about feeling good. It's what is
Mhm.
needed. What
Yeah.
do I need? I know I need this job. So that is a form of self-care. I have
Mhm.
to go and look for the resume, tailor my resume or look for these positions. So even just putting into the space that your self-care may require work.
Mhm.
Sometimes people it's presented as rest, and rest
Yeah.
is self-care, but this is a form of self-care that will require work. It may be
Mhm.
taxing. You need to know yourself. Like, I know I'm going to be drained. I know I'm going to be
Yeah.
in a mood. So let me do it at a time that's most, convenient to where I'm not affecting other people, or
Yeah.
to where I can schedule it to where, okay, I got my counseling session the next day, or whatever the
Mhm.
case may be. So just know I thank you for kind of speaking about the structure and organization
Mhm.
of moving forward with self-care,
Moving
because it's
forward.
not
Yeah.
always just, okay, I'm gonna go get my nails done and have go to happy hour. It's sometimes
Mhm.
it's no, it's going to require work. And
Mhm.
I really think about individuals who know themselves in that way,
Mhm.
and even thinking of like neurodiverse individuals, to where
Mhm.
you may be overstimulated or it may be overwhelming to the point where you experience burnout. So that
Mhm.
will support as well of, I have my structure, I'm just going to focus on applying to 2 jobs today, and that's
Yeah.
it. That's
That's
self-care.
it.
And
Mhm.
I may backdoor, and Friday I may try to get one, or have a system that works for you, because sometimes self-care requires work. It's not
Yeah.
just a removal of work.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
thank you for putting that. That is a very important point that I don't think I've has come across in the discussions that I've had with other individuals. So that's something that's
Mhm.
very much needed.
Mhm. Agree.
Yeah. So Bassie, I thank you on behalf of my business, Be Whitaker Counseling Consulting. I thank the Foundations Project and all that you're doing, and you sharing this wealth of knowledge and just awareness. And I know so much more is going to come up. I am already
Mhm.
thinking about, okay, let's make a one pager. And you know what I mean? Like career coaching versus
That's
professional
all.
coaching,
Yeah.
where like I'm
Yeah.
already seeing some things to where we can help to remove barriers for
Mhm.
individuals who may not even thought this far. So I encourage the people to, you know, take notes as you watch this video. Hopefully we have the timestamp so you can go back, and then to give yourself some homework of like, what does this look like for you? Do you know
Mhm.
the impact that you bring, right? Like, you don't
Mhm.
have to start with something so tangible right now, but just reflect. Do you
Mhm.
know the impact you bring? Do you know what sets you apart? Do you know what you want? Are you fulfilled?
Yeah.
And just kind of starting there, and just letting, get checking in with you to move forward and
Mhm.
making some of these moves that were suggested. So
Yeah.
I thank you so much. I cannot wait till we reconvene
Connect
again.
again. Yeah.
Yes. And before we officially end this, could you please let people know where they can find you?
Sure. So, website, foundationsproject.com. My name is like it is here on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active, Baasima Hendrickson. And then the company site there is the Foundations Project as well. Also on Instagram and Facebook as the Foundations Project, but not as active. Like I'll post there, but I'm a lot more accessible on LinkedIn as it's a professional site. So that's where you can send me a message. You can definitely connect with me. I post often. I try to give a lot more tips, both well-being tips, some that I've
Mm.
gotten from being with a care counselor for so many years, um, some on jobs, but overall, lots of tidbits that can just help someone's overall well-being. So definitely feel free to contact me if you're not sure if you need more assistance. Ask.
Yeah.
Do free discovery calls, or again, you can send us an email through the website or through LinkedIn, and we'll let you know if we can help. And I will always refer you to someone if I can.
Okay. And thank you again. Final thank you for supporting the mission to educate, normalize, and empower. This conversation
Mhm.
has done that beyond what I expected or could have thought of. So I thank you.